Dad, tomorrow's dinner is canceled. Don't come. I'm Edward Thompson, 73 years old, a widower for 2 years, and I'm going to tell you a story that changed my life forever. But first, tell me what city you're listening from. And please share this story with anyone who needs to hear it, because what happened to me shouldn't happen to any senior. Those were the exact words my daughter, Kimberly, told me over the phone. Just like that. Dry, with no explanation, no apologies. As if canceling her husband's birthday dinner was no big deal. Kimberly is my youngest daughter, my spoiled one. She'd been special to me since she was a little girl. Her mom, Eleanor, God rest her soul, always used to scold me because I defended her too much. "Edward, you'll spoil her," she'd say, but I couldn't help it. That girl had something that just melted my heart. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. I was in my small living room, watching the news as usual. My house is simple, not big or luxurious, but it's mine. I paid for it with 40 years of working in construction. Every dollar I spent on that house came from my calloused hands and aching back. When the phone rang, I thought Kimberly was calling to confirm tomorrow's details. It was the 50th birthday of her husband, Robert, a man who, well, that's another story. "Hello, my dear. How are you?" "Good, Dad. I'm calling to let you know tomorrow's dinner is canceled. Don't come." I felt a cold shiver run through my body. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. The coldness in her voice, as if she were talking to a stranger. Canceled? Did something happen, Kimberly? "No, nothing serious. Robert just isn't feeling unwell. We'll reschedule for another day." But there was something in her voice that didn't convince me. A nervousness, a rush to end the call. And I swear I heard voices in the background. There were people at her house. "Are you sure, my dear? If Robert is sick, I can..." "No, Dad, really. He's fine. He just needs to rest. I'll call you next week to make plans." She hung up. I stayed there, sitting with the phone in my hand, feeling a strange emptiness in my chest. During 48 years of marriage, Eleanor always told me I had a sixth sense for knowing when something was wrong. "You have an old dog's nose, Edward," she'd say, laughing. And that day, my old dog's nose told me something wasn't right. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying the conversation in my mind. The voices I thought I heard in the background, Kimberly's rush to hang up. Robert never got sick. He was one of those men who boasted he never went to the doctor. Friday morning, I woke up early, made my coffee as always, sat in my favorite chair, and made a decision. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe I was imagining things. But I had to know the truth. I went to the grocery store and bought everything to make my famous chili, Robert's favorite dish. I spent almost $50 on ingredients, money I don't have to spare, but which I've always gladly spent when it comes to family. Then I stopped by my friend Frank's flower shop and ordered a nice arrangement. Another $30. That's a total of $80 invested in a celebration that was supposedly canceled. "What's the arrangement for, buddy?" Frank asked as he prepared the flowers. "For Robert. It's his birthday." Frank looked at me strangely. I had told him about Kimberly's call the day before, but not that the dinner was canceled. "Yeah, but I have a hunch something isn't right. My friend has known me for 30 years. He knows when I'm serious. Edward, be careful. Sometimes it's better not to know certain truths." But I had already decided. I put on my white Sunday shirt, the last one Eleanor gave me. I put on my dress pants and headed to Kimberly's house. As I drove my old pickup truck through the streets of San Diego, I thought about all the birthdays we had celebrated together. The parties, the cakes, the laughter. I had always been a part of those celebrations. I had always been welcome. What had changed? I arrived at her neighborhood at 7 o'clock sharp, the exact time that we had agreed for dinner. I parked in front of the house and immediately knew I had been right. There were cars everywhere. Many cars I recognized. And it was at that moment that I confirmed what my heart already knew. My daughter had lied to me. I stood there, in front of that house I helped and pay for, seeing all those parked cars. My son Michael's, my friend Bob's, Kimberly's neighbors. Even my sister Sarah's car was there. Everyone was celebrating. Everyone but me. With the flowers in one hand and the chili in the other, I slowly walked towards the front door. Every step I took felt like walking on broken glass. The music grew louder, the laughter clearer. It was a full-blown party. I stopped in front of the wooden door that I myself had varnished 3 years ago. When Kimberly and Robert moved into that house, I was the first to arrive to help them. I painted walls, fixed the plumbing, installed light fixtures. My hands built part of the happiness that was being lived inside that house, and now I was outside, excluded, like a stranger. I took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Footsteps approached from inside. The music quieted a little. I heard Kimberly's voice asking, "Who is it?" from the other side. "It's me, my dear. Your dad." Silence. A silence that lasted an eternity. I could hear murmurs inside, worried voices, as if my arrival was a catastrophe. Finally, the door opened. Kimberly appeared with a forced smile. She was wearing her blue dress, the nice one, the one for special occasions. She had makeup on, earrings. She had dressed up for a party that supposedly didn't exist. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Her voice trembled. Her eyes didn't look at me directly, like when she was a child, and lied to me about her school grades. "I came to congratulate Robert. I brought chili and flowers." "But Dad, I told you it was canceled. Robert is sick." At that moment, as if fate wanted to mock us, a loud laugh echoed from inside. Robert says unmistakable laugh. That laugh I had heard at so many family gatherings. Kimberly turned red, completely red. "Kimberly, are you going to explain to me what's happening?" My voice sounded more serious than I intended. But the anger was starting to rise in my throat, not so much because of the lie, but because of the humiliation, for feeling like a dog kicked out of the house. "It's just, Dad, it's complicated." "Complicated? What can be complicated about my son-in-law's birthday?" From inside I heard more voices. I recognized Michael's voice, my older son, my sister Sarah's voice, my friends' voices. Everyone was there, celebrating without me. "Let me in, Kimberly." "No, Dad, you should come tomorrow." "And Kimberly? Ann Thompson." I used her full name, like when she was a child and did something wrong. "Let me in now." My daughter looked at me with those eyes I had known since she was born. Those eyes that pleaded for forgiveness before I even knew what for. She sighed and stepped aside. I walked into the house. What I saw broke my heart. It was a full-blown party. Gold balloons hanging from the ceiling. A long table filled with food. A chocolate cake with 50 candles. Gifts piled in a corner. And everyone there. All my family. All my close friends. A deathly silence fell when they saw me enter. Robert was in the center of the living room with a glass of wine in his hand, wearing a new shirt. He didn't look sick at all. In fact, he looked better than ever. Michael, my older son, was the first to react. He approached me with a guilty look on his face. "Dad, You what, son? I didn't know Kimberly told you it was canceled." "I thought you'd be late." "As always." A lie. I was never late for family gatherings. On the contrary, I was always the first to arrive to help with whatever was needed. My sister Sarah also approached, nervous. "Edward, how are you? We weren't expecting you." "You weren't expecting me at my son-in-law's birthday?" Robert, the birthday boy, remained silent, drinking his wine, watching the scene as if it were a movie he wasn't interested in. I placed the flowers and the chili on the main table. Everyone looked at me as if I'd just placed a bomb. I brought my homemade chili, Robert's favorite, and flowers to decorate. No one said anything. The atmosphere was so tense, you could cut it with a knife. It was then that I noticed something that chilled my blood. On the table where the gifts were piled, I saw several credit cards. My credit card was there, the one I had lent Kimberly last month for an emergency she never fully explained to me. Kimberly, isn't that marrant? My daughter followed my gaze and became even more nervous. "Yes, Dad. It's just that we were going to pay for everything for Robert as a surprise, and with my card, without asking me." The silence grew even more uncomfortable. Robert finally spoke. "Edward, don't worry. We'll reimburse you for everything." "You'll reimburse me?" "Reimburse me for what?" Kimberly looked at Robert desperately, as if asking him to shut up. "The dinner, the drinks, some gifts," Robert said, with a smile that made me want to wipe it off his face with my fists. "You excluded me from my son-in-law's birthday party, but you included my money." The words came out of my mouth like bullets, each word loaded with all the anger and disappointment I felt. Michael tried to intervene. "Dad, it's not what you think. It's not what I think." "Then what is it?" "Michael, explain to me what this is." I gestured to the entire living room, the party, the guests, the credit card on the table. "It's just that we thought maybe you'd be bored, that the music would be too loud for you." "I'd be bored at my son-in-law's birthday with my family?" My sister Sarah tried to calm me. "Edward, don't get upset. Sit down. Let's eat together." "No." My voice sounded firmer than it had in years. "I'm not going to sit down, I'm not going to eat, and I'm not going to stay." I walked towards the table where my credit card was. I picked it up and put it in my wallet. "How much did you spend?" Robert and Kimberly looked at each other. "Dad, it doesn't matter." "It does matter, Kimberly. How much?" "About $800, my daughter murmured. $800. Almost 2 months of my pension. 2 months of my money for a party I wasn't invited to. I felt like I'd been slapped. "Very well," I said with a calm that even I didn't recognize. "Very well." I headed for the door. Everyone watched me, not knowing what to do or say. Before leaving, I turned around and looked at them all. My daughter, my son, my sister, my friends, Robert. "Enjoy your party, enjoy my money, and enjoy celebrating without me." I walked out of that house and closed the door behind me, but I didn't leave. I stood in the yard under the moonlight, looking at that house where I could hear the music and laughter, where my family continued to celebrate as if nothing had happened. And it was there, standing in that yard, that I made the most important decision of my life. I was going to teach them a lesson they would never forget. I stayed there in the yard, looking at that house where my family was still celebrating without me. The music was louder now, as if my leaving had taken a weight off their shoulders, as if now they could truly enjoy themselves in peace. Anger boiled in my veins, but it wasn't blind anger. It was calculated anger. The same anger that helped me survive 40 years in construction, where if you don't think fast, a beam can fall on your head. I took out my cell phone and called the bank. Even though it was 8 o'clock at night, I knew the automated service operated 24 hours a day. To report theft or unauthorized card use, press 3. I pressed 3. Your card has been temporarily blocked. To reactivate it, you will need to present official identification at your branch. Perfect. $800 in purchases that were going to bounce. All those charges Robert and Kimberly had made were going to be rejected the next day. The beer, the food, the gifts they had bought, everything. But that was just the beginning. I walked towards my truck, but before getting in, I dialed another number. My friend Frank's, from the flower shop. "Hello, Frank. It's Edward. Do you remember the arrangement I ordered for Robert?" "Yeah, buddy." "What happened? Didn't you like it?" "No, Frank. The flowers are beautiful, but I need to ask you a favor. Do you have a way to cancel the payment I made today?" "Cancel? Did something bad happen?" "I'll explain later." "Can you cancel it?" "Well, yeah. Since you paid with a card and it was today, I can do the cancellation." "But, buddy, are you okay?" "I'm perfectly fine, Frank. Please do it, and I'll explain everything tomorrow." I hung up and called the butcher where I had bought the meat for the chili, then the guy who sold me the peppers. One by one, I canceled all the payments I had made that day, everything I had spent on that celebration that was denied to me. As I made the calls, I looked through the house window and saw shadows moving, people dancing, my family enjoying my absence. When I finished with the cancellations, I got in my truck and drove slowly towards my house. But my head wasn't slow. My head was working at full speed, planning every move of what was to come. I arrived home at 9 o'clock at night. A quiet, empty house, but at least an honest one, unlike that party full of lies I had just witnessed. I sat in my favorite armchair, the one Eleanor had given me for my 60th birthday, and took out my phone book. That old notebook, full of numbers and addresses I had collected during 73 years of life. I looked for the number of Mr. Miller, my lawyer, the same one who helped me with all the inheritance paperwork when Eleanor died. It was 9:30 at night, but Mr. Miller was one of those men who always answer the phone, especially when it came to old friends. "Edward, how are you? It's late for you to be calling on me." "Mr. Miller, I need to ask you something." "Do you remember my will?" "Of course. We did it 2 years ago after Eleanor died. Why? How difficult would it be to change it?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Edward, did something happen with your children?" "Something happened, Mr. Miller. Something that opened my eyes in a way I never thought would happen. Do you want to come to my office tomorrow to discuss it?" "Yes, but I want you to know right now that I'm going to make big changes, very big changes." "All right, Edward. I'll see you at 10 in the morning." I hung up the phone and sat there in the silence of my house, thinking about everything I had built during my life, the house where I lived, the savings I had put together dollar by dollar, the truck, the few plots of land I was able to buy over the years. All of that I had intended for my children, for Kimberly and Michael, so that when I was no longer here, they would have something to start or continue their lives with. But that night, seeing how they had treated me, I realized something Eleanor had told me many times, and which I never wanted to hear. Edward, you give them everything so easily that they no longer value anything. My Eleanor was always smarter than me at reading people, even our own children. The next day, Saturday, I woke up at 6 in the morning, as always. I made my coffee, read the newspaper, and by 9, I was ready to head to Mr. Miller's office. But first, I decided to make a stop. I drove to Kimberly's house. I wanted to see what was left of last night's party. I wanted to see the consequences of my cancellations. When I arrived, the scene was exactly what I expected. Robert was in the front yard talking on the phone with a desperate look on his face. Kimberly was next to him, crying. I parked in front of the house, rolled down my truck window, and stayed there observing. Robert hung up the phone and yelled something at Kimberly. I couldn't hear what, but by his body language, it was something nasty. Kimberly cried harder. It was then that Kimberly saw me. Our eyes met through my truck's windshield. Her face changed completely, from sadness to surprise, from surprise to fear. She said something to Robert and pointed to where I was. Robert turned and saw me. His face turned red with anger. He walked towards my truck with firm steps, as if he wanted to hit me. I rolled the window down completely and waited for him with the calm of a man who knows exactly what he's doing. "Edward, what did you do?" he yelled before reaching my window. "Good morning, Robert. How are you feeling this morning? Did your illness from last night clear up? Don't play dumb. Why did you cancel the engagements? You made us look ridiculous with all the vendors." "I canceled the payments? I don't know what you're talking about, Robert." My innocent face made him even more desperate. "The meat you bought, the flowers, everything. They're calling us, saying the payments were rejected." "Ah, those. Yes, I canceled those." "Why did you do that?" "Because yesterday I realized there was a mistake." "What mistake?" "The mistake was thinking you wanted me to be part of your family." Robert fell silent. Kimberly also approached, her eyes swollen from crying. "Dad, can we fix this?" my daughter said, her voice breaking. "Fix what, Kimberly? Fix that you lied to me? Fix that you used my money for a party I wasn't invited to? Fix that you treated me like a nuisance?" "Dad, it wasn't like that." "Yes, it was, my dear. Exactly like that." I rolled up my truck window and started the engine. "But don't worry," I yelled from inside the car. "This is just beginning." I drove to Mr. Miller's office with a smile on my face. The first part of my plan had worked perfectly, but what was coming was going to be much, much better. I arrived at Mr. Miller's office exactly at 10 in the morning. He was waiting for me with freshly brewed coffee and that serious look he gets when he knows something important is about to be discussed. Fernando and I had known each other for 20 years. He was the one who helped me when I bought my house, when Eleanor got sick, and when she died. He's one of those men who understand that life isn't always fair, but that the law can help balance things. "Edward, you look different, more determined," he said as we sat down in his office. "Tell me what happened." I told him everything. From Kimberly's call to the scene this morning in front of her house. "Minister." Miller listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally, taking notes in his usual yellow notebook. "Edward, I understand your anger. Any father would feel betrayed, but changing a will is a very serious decision. Are you sure you want to do this?" His question was valid, but I had spent the entire night thinking about it. "Mr. Miller, for 50 years I worked to give my children the best. I paid for their education, helped them with their homes, lent them money every time they needed it. But yesterday I realized they don't see me as their dad. They see me as their bank." Mr. Miller wrote something else in his notebook. "What specific changes do you want to make?" I want to completely remove Kimberly from the will. Everything that was going to her should go to a charity, to a senior care facility where old people are truly valued. And Michael, he'll depend on how he behaves in the coming days. If he defends what his sister did, he also gets nothing. Mr. Miller's pen stopped. Edward, that's drastic. Life is drastic, Mr. Miller. I found that out last night. We spent 2 hours drafting the changes. Mr. Miller explained every legal detail, every implication, every consequence. In the end, I signed the motion with the same calm with which I had signed my first paycheck 50 years ago. The documents will be ready by next week, Mr. Miller told me as he put away the papers. Edward, are you going to tell your children about these changes? Not yet. First, I want to see if they are capable of a genuine apology, or if they're going to keep treating me like a fool. I left Mr. Miller's office feeling lighter than I had in months. It was strange. I had just disinherited my youngest daughter, and I felt at peace. Maybe because for the first time in a long time, I was making decisions based on how they treated me, not on how I expected them to treat me. I drove to downtown and parked in front of the diner where Eleanor and I used to have breakfast on Sundays. I went in, ordered a coffee and some huevos rancheros, and sat at our usual table. The waitress, Martha, had known me for years. Mr. Thompson, how are you? It's been a while since you came alone. I'm good, Martha. Better than I have been in a long time. As I ate breakfast, my phone rang. It was Michael, my older son. Dad, can we talk? Kimberly told me what happened yesterday. Of course, son. Where do you want to meet? I can come to your house this afternoon, around 4. I'll wait for you. I hung up the phone, wondering what version of the story Kimberly had told her brother. Surely one where she was the victim, and I, the crazy old man who ruined a party due to misunderstandings. I arrived home at noon and started cleaning. Not because it was dirty, but because I needed to keep my hands busy while my mind processed everything I had done in the last 24 hours. At 4 o'clock sharp, Michael knocked on the door. He came alone, which was a good sign. He had a serious but not aggressive look on his face. We sat in the living room, on the same armchairs where he used to do his homework as a child. Dad, Kimberly is really upset. She hasn't stopped crying since last night. And what do you want me to do about that, Michael? Forgive her. Fix this as a family. As a family? You were at that party, Michael? My son looked down. Yes. Did you know Kimberly had told me it was canceled? No, well, yes. But I thought... You thought? You thought it was better that way? That lately you'd gotten too clingy with us? Those words hurt me more than everything that had happened the day before. Clingy. That's how my older son saw my desire to be close to my family. Clingy. Yes, Dad. Ever since Mom died, you always want to be at all the gatherings. You always call, always ask what we're doing. Michael, do you have children? You know I do. Would you like it if, when you're old, your children think you're clingy for wanting to be with them? Michael was silent for a long moment. Dad, it's not that. Yes, it is, son. Exactly that. You see my love as an annoyance. Don't say that. Then how do you explain it? How do you explain that my entire family was at that party? Except me. How do you explain that you spent my money on a celebration I wasn't invited to? Michael tried to defend himself. The money thing was Robert's idea. Kimberly didn't want to use your card, but he said you wouldn't notice. I wouldn't notice? Am I so foolish that I don't check my bank statements? It's not that, Dad. Then what is it, Michael? Explain it to me, because I no longer understand how this family works. My son got up from the armchair and started pacing the living room. It was his way of thinking when he was nervous, just like when he was a teenager. Dad, Robert said it was better to celebrate without you because you always criticize everything, that you always find something wrong with what he does. And you agree with that. No, but I also didn't want to cause a problem. Michael, do you know the difference between you and me? What? That I always defended my family, even when they were wrong, but you don't defend me even when I'm right. Those words hung in the air like smoke. Michael sat down again. But this time he looked smaller, younger, like the child who used to find comfort in my arms when he had nightmares. Dad, what do you want me to do? I want you to answer one question with total honesty. Okay? Do you think what they did was right? Michael took a moment to respond. I could see the internal struggle in his eyes. Loyalty to his sister versus what he knew was right. No, Dad, it wasn't right. And what are you going to do about it? What do you want me to do? Nothing, Michael. I don't want you to do anything. I just wanted to know if I still had at least one child who could recognize when something was wrong. My son got up to leave. At the door, he turned to me. Dad, are you going to forgive Kimberly? That, I told him, is a question only time will answer. When Michael left, I stayed seated in my living room, looking at the family photos hanging on the walls. Photos of birthdays, Christmases, graduations, happy moments that now felt like memories from another life. That night, before going to bed, I dialed one last number, that of the St. Francis Senior Care, where I had decided to donate Kimberly's inheritance. Good evening. This is Edward Thompson. I'd like to make an appointment to discuss a donation. The second phase of my plan was underway. Monday morning, I woke up with a strange feeling. For the first time in 2 years since Eleanor died, I got up without that heaviness that accompanied me every morning. It was as if I had released a weight I didn't know I was carrying. I made my coffee, read the newspaper, and by 9 in the morning, I was already driving to St. Francis Senior Care. The director, a woman in her 50s named Ms. Reynolds, welcomed me into her office. It was a simple but clean place, with photos of the residents on the walls and an atmosphere that breathed tranquility. Mr. Thompson, it's a pleasure to meet you. You mentioned on the phone that you wanted to make a donation. That's right, Ms. Reynolds. But first, I'd like to see the place. See how you treat the seniors who live here. Ms. Reynolds smiled in a way that made me feel like I was in the right place. Of course, it will be a pleasure to show you our facilities. We toured the entire facility. The rooms were small but dignified. The kitchen smelled of homemade food. In the courtyard, several seniors were playing checkers in the shade of a tree. Others were reading or just chatting. There was something about that place that calmed me. The employees treated the residents with respect, with genuine affection. How many seniors live here? I asked Ms. Reynolds as I watched a group doing gentle exercises in the garden. We have capacity for 60, but right now we can only support 40 due to financial issues. Many families can't pay the full fees, and we don't have the heart to turn them away. And how do you sustain yourselves? With great difficulty, Mr. Thompson. With donations, with raffles, with events. We do what we can. It was at that moment that I knew I had made the right decision. These seniors, forgotten by their families or abandoned by circumstances, were being treated with more dignity than I had been in my own home. Ms. Reynolds, I want to make a significant donation, a very significant one, but I need it to be kept a secret for a while. What amount are we talking about, Mr. Thompson? approximately $200,000. Ms. Reynolds's face changed completely. She remained silent for a long moment, processing what she had just heard. Mr. Thompson, that amount would completely change this place. We could welcome more seniors, improve the facilities, hire more staff. Exactly what I want. But, as I said, it needs to be kept a secret until I let you know. We went for a walk in the garden while Ms. Reynolds explained all of the projects they could undertake with that donation. As she spoke, my phone rang. It was Kimberly. I let it ring. It rang again. I turned it off. Ms. Reynolds noticed my gesture. Family problems, Mr. Thompson? Something like that, Ms. Reynolds. That's why I'm here. We returned to her office and began discussing the legal details of the donation. Ms. Reynolds explained that they would need time to prepare all the documentation, especially for a donation of that magnitude. Perfect. That gives me time to sort out some personal matters. Mr. Thompson, may I ask what motivated you to make this donation? My family taught me something very valuable these past few days. It taught me the difference between loving someone and valuing someone. When I left the facility, it was almost noon. I turned on my phone and had 17 missed calls. 5 from Kimberly, 8 from Michael, 2 from my sister Sarah, and 2 from unrecognized numbers. I also had 11 WhatsApp messages. I read them one by one while sitting in my truck. Kimberly, Dad, please answer me. We need to talk. Michael, Dad, Kimberly is desperate. She says something else happened. What did you do? Sarah, Edward, your children are very worried. Call me. Kimberly again. Dad, I went to the bank. They told me you canceled your card. Robert is furious. The vendors are pressuring us to pay. Michael, Dad, Robert went to your house to look for you. You weren't there. Where are you? The last message was from Kimberly, sent just an hour ago. Dad, if you don't answer me, I'm going to the police. This isn't normal anymore. I smiled. Kimberly had always been dramatic, but threatening with the police was new, even for her. I dialed Michael's number. Dad, where are you? We've been trying to reach you all morning. I'm fine, Michael. I was taking care of some matters. What matters? Kimberly says you don't have a credit card anymore, that you canceled all your accounts. I didn't cancel all my accounts, just the card you guys were using without my permission. Dad, the vendors are pressuring Kimberly and Robert to pay for the party. They're threatening lawsuits. And what does that have to do with me? Well, they thought you were going to cover all the expenses. Michael, let me explain something to you. I didn't authorize those expenses. I wasn't at that party. I don't have to pay for anything. But Dad, it's $800. Kimberly and Robert don't have that money. Then maybe they should have thought about that before spending it. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Dad, do you realize you're ruining your own daughter's life? No, Michael. I'm not ruining anything. I just stopped fixing the problems they create for themselves. What do you mean by that? I mean that for years, I've been saving them from the consequences of their decisions. Loans they never repaid, expenses I covered without being asked, problems I solved without being thanked. But not anymore. Dad, you're being very harsh. Harsh, Michael? Do you know what's harsh? Harsh is working 40 years to give your children the best and having them repay you by excluding you from their lives. Michael sighed on the other end of the phone. What do you want us to do? Nothing. I don't want you to do anything. I just want you to face the consequences of your actions, like the adults you are. And if Kimberly can't pay, if they sue her, then she'll learn that decisions have consequences. I hung up the phone and drove to my house. When I arrived, there was a car parked in front of my door. It was Robert's car. He was standing in my yard, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. When he saw me arrive, he approached my truck with an unfriendly expression. "Edward, we need to talk now." "Good morning, Robert. How's your illness?" "Stop playing games. Are you going to help us with this or not?" "Help you with what?" "With the $800 we owe for the party." "The $800 you spent on a party I wasn't invited to?" "Look, Edward, I know you're angry, but this is getting out of control. The vendors are threatening to take us to court." I got out of my truck and walked towards my front door. Robert followed me. "Edward, Kimberly is devastated. She hasn't eaten in 2 days. She's sick with nerves. And she's your daughter, right?" "Yes, she's my daughter. The daughter who lied to me, excluded me, and used my money without permission. But she's still your dad." I stopped at my front door and turned to Robert. "You're right. I'm still her dad. But she stopped being my daughter last Friday night. You can't be serious." I've never been more serious in my life. Robert changed tactics. His voice became pleading. "Edward, please, help us this time. I promise, Liz, we'll pay you back every last dollar." "With what money, Robert? With the salary you have, or with more of my credit cards?" "We'll pay you, I swear." "You know what, Robert? I'm going to make you an offer." Robert's eyes lit up. "Tell me. Sell me your share of the house where you live." "What?" "The house I helped pay for. Sell me your part. With that money, you pay me what you owe me, and the problem is over." "Edward, that house is our home. It was your home when I was part of the family. Now it's just a house." Robert fell silent, processing my proposal. "Edward, you can't be serious." "Very serious. Think about it, Robert. It's my only offer." I went on into my house and closed the door, leaving Robert standing in my yard. From the window, I watched him take out his phone and make a call, probably to Kimberly, probably to tell her my proposal. I sat in my favorite armchair and smiled. The third phase of my plan had just begun. Not even 2 hours had passed when I heard shouting from the street. Kimberly had arrived at my house like a whirlwind, yelling my name from the sidewalk. Dad, come out of there. We need to talk." Her voice sounded desperate, broken, as if she had been crying for hours. I peered through the window and saw her standing in front of my door, with disheveled hair and wrinkled clothes. Robert was behind her, trying to calm her down, but she pushed him away with her hands. "Dad, I know you're in there. Your truck is in the driveway," she kept shouting, and pounding on the door with her fists. The neighbors started peering out their windows. Mrs. Gomez, my next-door neighbor, came out into her yard to see what was happening. It was a scene I never thought I'd see. My youngest daughter making a scene in front of my house like a crazy person. I decided to open the door before she attracted more attention. Kimberly lunged at me as soon as I opened it, crying and talking at the same time. "Dad, please, you can't do this. You can't force us to sell the house. Where are we going to live? What's going to happen to us?" Her desperation was real, but I no longer felt the automatic need to comfort her as before. Something inside me had changed forever. "Kimberly, calm down. Come in. Let's talk like civilized people." Robert followed me inside with a defeated look on his face. They sat in my living room on the same sofa where we had spent so many happy Christmases and birthdays. But now it felt like they were strangers in my house. Dad, Robert told me your proposal. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious, Kimberly. But that house is our home. We plan to have children there. To make a family. A family that doesn't include me. The words came out colder than I expected, but it was exactly how I felt. Kimberly was silent, wiping her tears with the sleeve of her blouse. Dad, the party was a mistake. I admit it. But it can't be so serious that you want to take our house away. I don't want to take your house away, Kimberly. I'm giving you a solution to the problem you created. Robert finally spoke. Edward, the house is worth much more than $800. If you force us to sell it, we're going to lose a lot of money. Then perhaps you should have thought about that before spending $800 on a party without having the means to pay for it. Kimberly got up from the mop and started pacing my living room like a caged animal. Dad, this isn't like you. You've always helped us when we have problems. You've always been there for us. You're right, Kimberly. I've always been there for you. But you weren't there for me when I needed to be with my family. It was just a party, Dad. Just a stupid party. No, Kimberly. It wasn't just a party. It was a lie. It was a betrayal. It was you telling me I am a nuisance in your lives. My voice was rising, but I didn't care. It was time for them to hear truths I had kept for too long. Robert tried to intervene. Edward, we understand you're upset. Upset, Robert? I'm not upset. Being upset is when your football team loses. This is family betrayal. You're exaggerating. I'm exaggerating. You think I'm exaggerating? I got up from my armchair and went to the kitchen. From the drawer, I took out all the receipts and proofs of payment I had saved for the past 2 years. Invoices for repairs I had paid for in their house, receipts for loans I had given them, proofs of expenses I had covered without being asked. I returned to the living room with the pile of papers and put them on the coffee table. See this? That's $22,000 I have lent you in the last 2 years. $22,000 you've never repaid me. Kimberly and Robert looked at the pickets, not knowing what to say. The roof repair on your house, $4,000. The loan for Kimberly's car, $8,000. The new tires for Robert's car, $3,000. The loan for your honeymoon. I continued reading each receipt, each proof of payment, every dollar I had spent on them, without asking for anything in return. Kimberly grew paler with each figure I mentioned. 25 different invoices, Kimberly. 25 times you needed my help, and I gave it to you without asking questions. 25 times I proved that for me, family comes first. Dad, we didn't know you were keeping track of all that. I'm not keeping track, Kimberly. I just keep receipts. But what I am keeping track of is how many times you've helped me when I needed something. I sat back in my armchair and looked them directly in the eyes. Do you know how many times that is? 0 times. Robert tried to defend himself. Edward, you never ask for help. I don't ask for help. When Eleanor died, who do you think cleaned this house for a month because I couldn't even get out of bed? My sister Sarah. Who do you think accompanied me to the doctor when I thought I had heart problems? My friend Frank. Who do you think brought me food for 2 weeks when I had the flu? Mrs. Gomez, my neighbor. Kimberly's tears started flowing again, but this time they were different. They weren't tears of desperation. They were tears of guilt. You two were too busy with your lives to notice that your dad also needed family. The silence in the living room was so heavy you could cut it with a knife. Robert looked at the floor. Kimberly wiped her tears, but they kept coming. Dad, we didn't know. Of course you didn't know, Kimberly, because you never asked. I got up again and walked to the window. Outside, life continued normally. Children played in the street. Neighbors watered their plants. The world kept turning as if nothing was happening. Do you know the difference between you and Mrs. Gomez? What? Kimberly asked, her voice broken. Mrs. Gomez asks me how I am and stays to listen to the answer. You ask me how I am and are already thinking about the next thing you have to do. Robert got up from the sofa. Edward, we understand we've made mistakes. They're not mistakes, Robert. Mistakes are accidents. This was a conscious decision to exclude me from your lives. What do you want us to do? I want you to face the consequences of your decisions, like the adults you are. And if you can't sell the house, then find another way to get $800. Kimberly approached me and took my hands. Her hands trembled. Dad, please, one last chance. I promise everything will change. I looked into her eyes. Those eyes I had known since she was born. Those eyes that had melted my heart for 30 years. But now I saw something different in them. I didn't see genuine repentance. I saw desperation to get out of the problem. Kimberly, do you really think what you did on Friday was wrong? Yes, Dad, it was very wrong. And why was it wrong? Because you hurt us. No, Kimberly. It was wrong because you excluded me. It was wrong because you lied to me. It was wrong because you used my money without permission. But above all, it was wrong because you made the conscious decision to celebrate without me. I understand, Dad. I understand everything. No, Kimberly, you haven't understood anything. I pulled my hands away from hers and walked to the front door. Because if you had understood, you wouldn't be here asking me to solve the problem you created. You'd be here telling me how you are going to solve it. I opened the door and waited for them to leave. You have 1 week to get the $800. If not, I will proceed with the lawsuit to recover the house. Kimberly left crying. Robert looked at me with a mixture of anger and respect I hadn't seen before. Edward, this isn't over. You're right, Robert. This is just beginning. I closed the door and stayed on the other side, listening to their car drive away. I took out my phone and dialed Mr. Miller's number. Mr. Miller, it's Edward. I need you to prepare some additional documents. What kind of documents? A civil lawsuit to recover my investment in Kimberly's house. Edward, are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The fourth phase of my plan had just begun. The next 3 days were the calmest I had had in months. No desperate calls from Kimberly asking for loans. No unexpected visits from Robert needing something fixed at his house. No messages from Michael asking if I could watch the kids. For the first time in a long time, my phone remained silent, and my house was peaceful. Thursday morning, as I drank my coffee in the garden and read the newspaper, I heard someone knocking on the door. It was early, just 8 o'clock in the morning. When I opened it, I found my sister Sarah. She had a serious look on her face and carried a grocery bag. Good morning, Edward. May I come in? Of course, Sarah, come in. My sister walked into the kitchen and started taking vegetables out of her bag without asking permission. Tomatoes, onions, chilies, cilantro. What are you doing, sis? I'm going to make you something to eat. It's clear you haven't been eating well. It was true. The past few days, I had been living on coffee and beans and tortillas. I didn't feel like cooking for just one person. As Sarah chopped vegetables, she spoke without looking at me. Kimberly came to see me yesterday. And what did she want? For me to talk to you, to convince you to give her a chance. And what did you tell her? I told her to get a part-time job and stop bothering her dad. My sister's response surprised me. I expected her to defend Kimberly, as the family always did when there were problems. Sarah, did you know about the party? My sister stopped chopping vegetables and looked me directly in the eyes. Yes, Edward, I knew. And why didn't you tell me? Because I thought Kimberly had explained well why it was better if you didn't go. And what was that explanation? That lately you'd been very melancholic since Eleanor died, and Robert didn't want his party to turn sad. I felt like I'd been slapped. Melancholic. That's what Kimberly said, that you weren't the same as before, that you were always talking about Eleanor, and that made everyone uncomfortable. Sarah, my wife died 2 years ago. Don't I have the right to miss her? Of course you have the right, Edward, but the rest of us also have the right not to carry your sadness all the time. I remained silent, processing my sister's words. For 2 years, I had thought my family understood my pain, that they respected my grieving process, but it turned out they saw it as a burden. Do you also think I'm a burden, Sarah? My sister sighed and sat down opposite me at the kitchen table. Edward, you're not a burden, but you have become different. Different? How? Before, you were the Edward who fixed everything, who always had a smile, who livened up gatherings. But since Eleanor died, you're the Edward who needs us to comfort him, to include him, to take care of him. And that's wrong? It's not wrong, brother, but it's exhausting. Sarah's words hurt me more than everything that had happened with Kimberly and Robert, because they came from someone I trusted, someone who had been with me for 73 years. So everyone thinks the same thing. Edward, no one wants to hurt you, but we also don't want every family gathering to turn into a therapy session. I got up from the table and walked to the window. Outside, Mrs. Gomez was watering her plants as every morning. She had never made me feel like a burden. On the contrary, she always asked me about Eleanor with affection. She always let me talk about her without rushing. Sarah, do you know the difference between family and strangers? What? Strangers treat you better. My sister approached and put her hand on my shoulder. Edward, don't say that. It's the truth, Sarah. Mrs. Gomez, who has barely known me for 5 years, has treated me with more respect and patience than my own children. Because Mrs. Gomez doesn't carry the responsibility of emotionally taking care of you every day. Take care of me? Who's taking care of me? Because I don't see anyone taking care of me. Edward, how many times have you called Kimberly crying because you miss Eleanor? How many times have you shown up at Michael's house unannounced because you feel lonely? My sister's questions made me reflect. It was true that since Eleanor died, I had sought more company from my family. It was true that sometimes I called just to hear familiar voices. Is it wrong for a widower to seek comfort in his family? It's not wrong, Edward. But it's also not right for you to turn your children into your therapists. I never asked them to be my therapists. I just asked them to be my children. And they've tried to be, but you've asked for more than they can give. Sarah went back to the kitchen and continued preparing the food. The smell of fried tomatoes began to fill the house, a smell that reminded me of Eleanor. Sarah, do you think I deserve what they did to me? No, Edward, you don't deserve it. But I also don't think they deserve to lose their house over something stupid. It's not just about the party, Sarah. It's about years of feeling like a nuisance in my own family. Then talk to them. Explain how you feel, but don't destroy them. Destroy them? I'm not destroying anyone. I'm just teaching them that actions have consequences. My sister served 2 plates of food, and we sat down to eat in silence. The food was delicious, but I wasn't hungry. I was processing everything I had heard. It was true that I had become a burden to my family. It was true that my grief for Eleanor made them uncomfortable. Sarah, what would you do in my place? I would forgive, Edward. I would forgive and try to fix things. And if they don't learn their lesson, then at least you would have done the right thing. The right thing according to whom? The right thing according to the Edward I knew for 70 years. The Edward who always put family first. After eating, Sarah left. I was left alone in my house, thinking about her words. Had I really become so different? Was it true that my pain overwhelmed them? I took out a photo of Eleanor from my wallet, a photo we took on our last anniversary, 2 months before she died. In that photo, I was smiling, a genuine smile, not forced. When was the last time I smiled like that? That Friday afternoon, the phone rang. It was Kimberly. Dad, can we talk? Her voice sounded different, calmer, less desperate. Speak, Kimberly. We got $400. Robert sold his motorcycle, and I pawned my engagement ring. And the other 400? We're trying to get it. But Dad, I want to apologize. For what specifically? For everything. For the lie, for using your money, for making you feel like you're not important to us. Kimberly, are you saying this because you need money? Or do you really feel it? There was a long pause before she answered. Both, Dad. Yes, I need your help. But I also realized we've been very selfish with you. How did you realize that? Because these past few days that you haven't answered the phone. I started thinking about all the times you've helped us and all the times we've ignored you. Kimberly, do you think I'm a burden to the family? A burden? Why are you asking that? Just answer me. No, Dad, you're not a burden. You're our dad. But ever since Mom died, you've been sad. It's normal. But we didn't know how to help you. Her words sounded sincere. But I had already made decisions I had no intention of changing. Kimberly, I appreciate the apology, but that doesn't change the consequences. What do you mean? That even if you apologize, even if you get the $800, there are things that can't be undone. What things? You'll know soon. I hung up the phone and called Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller, are the will documents ready? Yes, Edward. Do you want me to deliver them now? Not yet, but I do want you to schedule a family meeting for next week. A family meeting? Yes, I want Kimberly, Michael, and my sister Sarah to be there. It's time they know what I decided to do with my inheritance. Edward, are you sure? Completely sure. The fifth phase of my plan was about to begin. Tuesday morning, I received a call I wasn't expecting. It was Michael, but his voice sounded strange, nervous. Dad, I need to see you, but alone, without Kimberly, without Robert, without anyone else. Did something happen, son? Yes, Dad. Something very serious happened. Can I come to your house in an hour? I'll wait for you. I hung up the phone, wondering what could be so serious that Michael sounded so agitated. In the past few days, I hadn't heard much from him, only that he was trying to help Kimberly get the $400 they were missing. An hour later, Michael arrived at my house with an expression I hadn't seen on him since he was a teenager and failed math. Dad, sit down. What I'm about to tell you is going to make you very angry. Michael, I'm already angry. I don't think you can make things worse. Yes, I can, Dad. Yes, I can. He sat down opposite me in the living room and took a deep breath, as if preparing to confess something terrible. Last night, I went to Kimberly's house to give her $100 I managed to get. I arrived, and no one was there, but the door was open. I went in, thinking they had just stepped out for a moment. Michael paused and ran his hands over his face. I went up to their bedroom to leave the money on the nightstand and found something I shouldn't have seen. What did you find? Robert was talking on the phone with someone. He didn't see me. He was in the bathroom with the door ajar, and I could hear the whole conversation. What conversation? Robert was telling someone that you had already fallen into his trap, that everything had turned out better than he expected. I felt a cold shiver run down my back. What do you mean, trap? Dad, the party, the exclusion. It was all planned by Robert. Michael got up from the and started pacing the living room, as he did when he was very nervous. Robert told the person on the phone that he had convinced Kimberly that it was better to celebrate without you, that he had described you as a depressed old man who would ruin the party with his sad stories. Kimberly knew it was a lie. That's the worst part, Dad. Kimberly knew nothing. Robert manipulated her. He told her it would be better for you not to be at such a lively party because it would make you miss Mom more. The puzzle pieces began to form a picture I didn't like at all. And why would Robert do that? For the money, Dad. Robert knew you always solved Kimberly's financial problems. His plan was to throw an expensive party, use your card, and then when you got angry about not being invited, Kimberly would beg for your forgiveness, and you'd end up paying for everything, as always. But I canceled the card. Exactly. That's why Robert was so furious. His plan was ruined, because you reacted differently than he expected. Michael sat down again and looked me directly in the eyes. Dad, there's more. What else? Robert told that person that if you kept refusing to pay, he had a plan B. What plan B? To have Kimberly accuse you of psychological abuse toward her. To say that ever since Mom died, you've been emotionally abusing her, demanding that she be your personal nurse and psychologist. Blood rushed to my head. Kimberly, is she okay with that? I don't know, Dad. But Robert was telling that person that he had already spoken with a lawyer and that they had a good chance of winning a lawsuit against you. I got up from the armchair and walked to the window. Outside, life continued normally. But inside my house, a betrayal was unfolding that went far beyond what I had imagined. Michael, are you sure about what you heard? Completely sure, Dad. I even recorded part of the conversation on my phone. You recorded it? Yes. I thought you wouldn't believe me. Michael took out his phone and played an audio clip. It was Robert's voice, clear and unmistakable. The old man is more stubborn than we thought, but don't worry. If he doesn't pay voluntarily, Kimberly will say he's been emotionally blackmailing her since her mom died. We have witnesses who can testify that he's become a burden on the whole family. The audio continued, but I had heard enough. Michael, who else knows this? No one, Dad, just me. And now you. Kimberly knows you heard this, right? I left before they arrived. I remained silent, processing all of this information. Robert had not only manipulated Kimberly to exclude me, but now he was planning to use my grief over Eleanor's death against me. Dad, what are you going to do? First, I need to know if Kimberly is involved in this plan B, or if Robert is manipulating her too. How are you going to find out? Very easily. I'm going to test her. I took out my phone and dialed Kimberly's number. She answered on the second ring. Dad, how are you? Kimberly, I need to talk to you today at my house at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Did something happen? Yes, something happened and we need to clarify it. Can Robert come with me? No, just you. Dad, you're scaring me. Kimberly, are you coming or not? Yes, Dad, I'll be there. I hung up the phone and turned to Michael. Son, I need you to do me a favor. Anything, Dad. I want you to hide in the kitchen when Kimberly arrives, with your phone ready to record. I want you to listen to the entire conversation. Why? To find out if my daughter is a victim or an accomplice. The hours until 5 in the afternoon felt like an eternity. Michael and I prepared everything for the conversation. He would hide in the kitchen from where he could hear everything, but Kimberly wouldn't see him. I had prepared a series of questions that would help me find out the truth. At 5 o'clock sharp, Kimberly knocked on the door. She came alone, as I had asked. She looked nervous, but not guilty. That was a good sign. Hello, Dad. What did you want to talk about? Sit down, Kimberly. It's about Robert. My daughter's face changed immediately. What about Robert? Kimberly, I need you to answer me with complete honesty. Was it Robert's idea to exclude me from the party? My daughter was silent for a long moment. I could see the internal struggle in her eyes. Dad, Kimberly, I need the truth. The whole truth. Yes, Dad, it was Robert's idea. And why did you agree? Because he told me it would be better for you. That parties made you sad because you missed Mom. Kimberly, do you believe that's true? I don't know, Dad. Sometimes you do get sad at family gatherings. And that's why you decided it was better to celebrate without me? Robert said it was just for this one time, that afterwards we could have another smaller celebration just for you. Robert's lies were more elaborate than I thought. Kimberly, has Robert suggested that you accuse me of psychological abuse? My daughter's face turned completely pale. What? What you heard. Robert has told you to accuse me of emotional abuse. Dad, why are you asking me that? Just answer, Kimberly. He mentioned something like that last night, but I told him he was crazy. What exactly did he tell you? That if you didn't help us with the money, we could say, you've been emotionally blackmailing us since Mom died. Kimberly started crying, but I told him no, Dad, that you've never done that. And what did he respond? That I should think about it carefully. That it was our only way out. I got up from the armchair and approached Kimberly. Daughter, I need you to answer this from your heart. Do you think I have psychologically abused you? No, Dad, never. You've been the best dad in the world. Then why didn't you defend me when Robert suggested that? Why? Because I'm scared, Dad. I'm scared Robert will get angry with me if I don't support him. At that moment, I understood that Kimberly was not my enemy. She was another victim of Robert. Kimberly, do you want to save your marriage, or do you want to save your relationship with me? I want to save both, Dad. I'm afraid that's no longer possible. Michael came out of the kitchen with his phone in his hand. Kimberly was surprised to see him. Michael, what are you doing here? Recording the conversation, Kimberly, to protect Dad from your husband's lies. Kimberly was in shock when she saw Michael. You guys planned this? No, Kimberly, I said. We're just discovering the truth. What truth? The truth about who Robert really is and the truth about what kind of daughter you are. The sixth phase of my plan had just revealed information that would change everything forever. Kimberly sat in my living room crying and processing everything she had just discovered. Dad, I didn't know anything about all this. Her voice trembled through sobs. Michael sat beside her and put his hand on her shoulder. Kimberly, Dad and I know Robert manipulated you, but now you have to decide what you're going to do. What do you mean? I mean you have to choose. Either you're on Robert's side or you're on the family's side. Michael's words were direct, with no room for ambiguity. Kimberly looked at me with desperate eyes. Dad, what's going to happen now? That depends on you, Kimberly. Are you going to keep protecting Robert after knowing what he planned to do to me? He's my husband, Dad, and I'm your father. The father who worked 40 years to give you the best. The father who paid for your college, your wedding, your house. The father Robert wants to accuse of psychological abuse. Kimberly got up from the sofa and started pacing the living room like a caged animal. Why do I have to choose? Why can't you guys just fix this like men? Because Robert isn't a man, Kimberly. He's a manipulator who used you to hurt your own father. Michael whistled up and stood in front of his sister. Kimberly, listen to me carefully. If you defended Dad when Robert suggested the abuse, why didn't you tell Dad immediately what Robert was planning? Kimberly remained silent, with no answer. I'll tell you why, I continued. Because a part of you considered that maybe Robert was right. That maybe accusing me would be the easy way out of your financial problems. That's not true. It's not true? Then call Robert right now and tell him we know everything. Tell him his plans are over and that you're going to divorce him. Kimberly took out her phone with trembling hands, but she didn't dial. I can't do that, Dad. Why can't you? Why? Because I have nowhere to go. Because my whole life is with him. Your life is with him. But your family is here. Michael intervened again. Kimberly, Dad is giving you an opportunity to do the right thing. Don't waste it. And if I get a divorce, what's going to happen to me? You're going to come live here at your house, the house where you grew up, where you'll always be welcome. The words came out of my mouth before I could think them. But they were true. Despite everything, Kimberly was still my daughter. Are you serious, Dad? Completely serious, but with one condition. What condition? That you completely break up with Robert, that you have no more contact with him, that you get a divorce and start a new life. Kimberly sat down again, her head in her hands. Dad, it's not that easy. Of course it's not easy, Kimberly. Doing the right thing is never easy, but it's necessary. Kimberly's phone rang. It was Robert. She looked at the screen and then at me. Should I answer? Answer, but put it on speakerphone. I want to hear what he says. Kimberly answered the call with a trembling voice. Hello? Kimberly, where are you? I got home, and you're not there. I'm at my dad's house. What are you doing there? I thought we were going to have dinner together. Robert, we need to talk. About what? About what you plan to do to my dad. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. What are you talking about, Kimberly? About the plan to accuse him of psychological abuse. Kimberly, I don't know what you're talking about. Robert, please, don't lie anymore. Who's there with you? My dad and Michael. Kimberly, get out of there right now. Those people are brainwashing you. Those people are my family. I'm your family, Kimberly. I'm your husband. My family is the one who loves me unconditionally, Robert. The one who doesn't ask me to betray my own father. Robert changed tactics. His voice became soft, manipulative. Kimberly, my love, come home. We can fix this together. Without your dad, without Michael, just you and me, like always. No, Robert. What do you mean, no? I'm not going home, and we're not going to fix anything. Kimberly, if you leave that house without me, You won't be able to come back." "That's fine, Robert. I don't want to come back anymore." Kimberly hung up the phone and immediately burst into tears. Michael hugged her, and I approached to stroke her head, just like when she was a little girl. "Kimberly, you just did the bravest thing you've ever done in your life. Now what's going to happen, Dad? Now you're going to come live here while we sort out the divorce, and tomorrow we're all morning to Mr. Miller's office together." "What for?" "To sign some very important documents." Michael looked at me with curiosity. "What documents, Dad?" "The documents that will fix everything once and for all." That night, for the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel alone in my house. Kimberly slept in her usual room, the one I had kept intact since she got married. Michael stayed on the living room sofa. We were together again as a family, as it should be. But I knew Robert wouldn't stay quiet, and I was prepared for that too. The last phase of my plan was about to begin. At 10 in the morning, the next day, the three of us arrived at Mr. Miller's office. Kimberly was nervous, Michael curious, and I was calm. Finally, calm. Mr. Miller was waiting for us with several documents on his desk, and that smile he gets when he knows he's about to deliver good news. "Good morning, Thompson family. Edward, do you want to explain to your children what we're going to do today?" "Yes, Mr. Miller." I turned to Kimberly and Michael. "Kids, this week I made some important decisions about my inheritance. Decisions I thought were going to be final. But yesterday's events made me change my mind." Kimberly looked at me with frightened eyes. "Dad, what decisions?" "Kimberly, I had completely removed you from my will. Everything that was going to you, I was going to donate to St. Francis Senior Care." My daughter turned pale. "Why?" "Because I thought you no longer wanted me as part of your life. But yesterday you proved me wrong." "Dad," "Kimberly, when you chose to stay on the family's side instead of Robert's, you showed me you are the daughter I raised, the daughter who puts family first." Tears began to run down Kimberly's cheeks. Michael also looked emotional. Mr. Miller intervened. "Edward decided to make some last-minute changes." "What changes?" Michael asked. "Michael, you keep your full share of the inheritance. You were never in doubt. You were always loyal to the family." My son smiled and hugged me. "Kimberly, you will also get your share of the inheritance back, but with some conditions." "What conditions?" "First, that you divorce Robert and never have contact with him again. Second, that you come to live with me until you can establish yourself on your own. Third, that you use part of that inheritance to study something you like, so that you never again depend financially on any man." Kimberly started crying harder, but they were tears of relief. "Dad, I accept all the conditions. There's a fourth condition." "What?" "That on Sundays and we cook your mom's favorite dish together to remember her properly." "I accept, Dad. I accept everything." Mr. Miller handed us the documents to sign. As we reviewed them, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello, Edward Thompson speaking?" "Yes. Who is this?" "This is Attorney Jenkins. I represent Robert Holloway in a legal matter." The three of us looked up immediately. Mr. Miller activated the recorder on his desk. "What legal matter?" "My client wants to lose you and your daughter Kimberly for psychological harm and emotional blackmail. Seriously, very seriously. We're also going to sue for the $800 you owe for the birthday party." "Attorney Jenkins, right?" "Yes. I'm going to give you some free advice. Tell your client to immediately withdraw those threats." "Why would I do that?" "Because I have your client recorded planning false accusations against me, and because I have witnesses to his psychological manipulation of my daughter. There was silence on the other end of the line. I also have proof that he used my credit card without authorization, which is a federal crime, and I have evidence that he planned this whole situation to defraud money. Mr. Thompson, I haven't finished, attorney. It also turns out that I helped pay for the house where your client lives, and since my daughter is divorcing him, I'm going to sue to recover my investment. That's not possible. Very possible. I have all the payment receipts. Mr. Miller, my lawyer, already has the lawsuit prepared. Mr. Miller smiled and held up a folder full of documents. Tell Robert he has 24 hours to vacate the house. After that, we'll proceed legally. Mr. Thompson, can this be settled? No, attorney. This cannot be settled anymore. Your client had opportunities to do the right thing. He chose the difficult path. What do you want us to do? Nothing. I don't want you to do anything. Just prepare for the consequences. I hung up the phone and looked at my children. See? That was the last piece of the puzzle. What piece? Michael asked. Robert trying to proceed with his plan without knowing that we already knew everything. Kimberly looked at me with admiration. Dad, did you plan all this from the beginning? No, Kimberly. At first I just wanted to teach you a lesson about consequences. But when I discovered Robert's manipulation, I decided he deserved more than a lesson. What else does he deserve? Complete justice. Mr. Miller handed us the last documents to sign. With this, Robert loses all rights to the house, Kimberly recovers her share of the inheritance, and you have complete legal protection against any false lawsuits. We left Mr. Miller's office, feeling like a family again. Kimberly clung to my arm as we walked to the truck. Dad, how did you know it would all turn out this way? I didn't know, my daughter, but I knew that if I did the right thing, things would fall into place. And what about the donation to the senior care? That donation will still happen, but with Robert's money. How? When we sell the house he's going to lose, part of that money will go to the senior care, so other seniors don't go through what I did. 3 months later, Robert had lost the house. He had been sued for unauthorized credit card use and had to pay a fine for false accusations. Kimberly got a job as a teacher and started studying for a master's degree on weekends. Michael and I became closer than ever, and every Sunday, as promised, we cooked together, remembering Eleanor. Do you know what I learned from all of this? That respect isn't begged for, it's earned. That family isn't who shares your blood, but who shares your table. And that it's never, ever too late to teach people how to treat you. My revenge wasn't perfect, because it was cruel. It was perfect, because it was just. And that's why now, I sleep peacefully every night. So tell me, what would you have done in my place? And share this story with anyone who needs to hear that seniors also have dignity. Comment from what city you're listening, because these stories need to reach every corner of the world.